Am I the a-hole for telling off a lady in a supermarket after she made a teenage cashier cry? Unless the title is totally misleading, it's going to be very hard for you to come out of this as the a-hole. So this happened yesterday. I'm still wondering if I overreacted. I, 35F, was doing my usual weekly grocery shopping at a local supermarket. It was a busy afternoon and the line at the checkout was pretty long. I was waiting patiently when I noticed the woman in front of me, probably mid-50s, becoming increasingly agitated as the teenage cashier, who couldn't have been older than 17, was scanning her items. The cashier seemed a bit flustered. I could tell she was probably new, making a few mistakes here and there, but nothing serious. The older woman, however, was not having it. She started muttering under her breath, rolling her eyes and tapping her foot. Finally, when the cashier accidentally scanned an item twice and needed to call a supervisor to void it, the woman lost it. She started berating the poor girl, saying things like, "How hard can it be to do this job? Can you even do basic tasks? You're wasting people's time." She just kept going on, and the more she yelled, the more flustered the cashier got until she started tearing up. I stood there for a second, hoping the lady would cool down, but she didn't. The poor cashier was clearly trying her best to keep it together. That's when I stepped in. I said to her, "You don't have the right to treat someone like that. She's doing her best and it's just a mistake. If you're so unhappy, maybe you should try working here for a day and see how easy it is." The woman looked stunned and told me to mind my own business. I replied, "It is my business when you're making a kid cry over something as stupid as groceries." The cashier's supervisor had arrived by then and stepped in to handle the situation, and the woman stormed off, still muttering and cursing. After she left, the cashier thanked me with teary eyes, but a couple of the people behind me in line gave me looks like I was the one that had done something wrong. Now I'm second guessing myself. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for telling her off? No. Every cashier needs someone like you in line for when a Karen goes off on them. Unfortunately, the supermarket is a breeding ground for entitled Karens, so it's possible some had lined up behind you, or maybe they just joined the line too late to see what you were going off on the lady about. Blue Green has a great response in the comments. Not the a-hole. Karens keep being Karens because nobody stands up to them. Good for you. My favourite Karen story of all time goes to my 80-year-old widower neighbour. Back at the tail end of the pandemic lockdown, my neighbour was in the grocery store shopping, wearing his mask and minding his own business. A Karen, with no mask, came up to him and started yelling that his mask was a waste of time and didn't do him any good. My 80-year-old neighbour calmly said to her, "Sure it does. With my mask on, I can't smell your nasty As you might imagine, my 80-year-old neighbour is my hero. Brutal response, but much deserved. Am I the a-hole for resetting my life every 3 years and cutting contact with friends, colleagues and romances I make? After I graduated college, 24 years ago now, I have been living life by what I call the policy. My policy is basically that I commit to resetting my entire life every 3 years. What this means is that I regard that life of 3 years and that version of myself as completely over and done. This means I have to cut off any friend or colleague, even any romantic relationships. I move to a new part of the country and start completely over from scratch. Sometimes it is painful, but it allows me to have a very interesting life, and in some ways live many different lives. I even try on a new persona of sorts each time. I am, by nature, in my core, a kind of reserved person. But by viewing each new error as an acting challenge, I craft a new persona and am able to act it out. I've been doing this for 24 years. This means that I've led 8 distinct lives. In recent eras, when I start to get close to people, I tell them about the policy, and I am upfront that at the end of my 3 years, I will be moving to a different part of the country and will never see or speak to them again. I tell them it's not personal, it is just how I choose to experience life. So I recently came to the end of one of my 3-year eras. I'd done this one in the northeastern US, not naming any specific areas, and I decided for my new era I would try out something in the southwest. I had a goodbye dinner of sorts with some of the close friends and my girlfriend at the time. As is typical, some of them didn't believe I was serious, but I managed to convince them. My girlfriend became distraught and made a scene. It was an embarrassing way to end this era. I tried to fight her and get a hold of her before I left, but I couldn't, so that was it. I sent her a final text saying I'm sorry how it ended, I wanted it to be amicable, and I wished her well and hoped she had a good life, but it was time for me to start over and she would not hear from me again. I'm early into my new iteration. I have a good persona crafted, I have a good job, and am getting into new hobbies that the new me is passionate about. It's going well, and all of a sudden last week my ex-girlfriend from a prior life showed up at my new apartment. Again, this is on the other side of the country. I was astonished and dismayed, and weirdly, I kind of felt afraid and a little out of sorts. It's hard to explain, but when I start a new life, I consider my prior persona ended and my prior life over. So being confronted with a person from that old life is kind of surreal, and almost like encountering a ghost or something. When I saw her by my door, I kind of froze and my brain almost felt like it was stuck on a loading screen or something. I couldn't process it. I'm sorry, but what is wrong with you? Dude needs therapy. She was being emotional and wanted to reconcile. Finally, I found my words and told her that life was gone and that she needed to leave or I would call the police. She looked at me like I was insane. Meanwhile, she is the one who stalked me across America. I locked myself inside my apartment. Eventually she left. To my further horror, my new phone number has been getting texts from her family who I was close to in my prior life, as well as some of my friends from that life. I blocked all of them without response. They were violating my policy. I've done this multiple times and never had people from a prior finished life stalk me into the next one. Even my original relatives haven't done that. For some reason, this batch is refusing to respect my lifestyle. I was honest about my policy with them for years and told them to expect it. Now, they are intruding in my new life. It has thrown off my new persona. It makes things difficult. Part of me wonders if, maybe though, I could somehow be in the wrong. I needed to get some unbiased opinions on Reddit. How long before you make a persona that has a therapist? This is truly deranged behaviour. You refer to your parents as my original relatives. And the nerve to say it's insane or creepy for someone to stalk you when you have the emotional attachment of Patrick Bateman. I'm glad this persona has Reddit, and hopefully someone said something which truly opens your eyes to how wrong this is, and unfair to everyone around you, especially your disposable girlfriends. Slam Monkey says, enjoy dying alone, and OP responds to say, I would have friends in my final iteration, however many decades away that is. Not worried about it. If this is even true, there's something so obnoxiously arrogant about it. I pranked a colleague and I think she's overreacting. This has been bothering me all afternoon. My friends told me to try posting the situation here for an unbiased opinion. I've been at my current job for about 7 months now. I didn't meet this co-worker Jill until about 4 months because she was out on maternity leave. I've never really liked her. She talks a lot and is always asking personal questions. I think she likes me, but she's married with a kid, so it's a hard no from me. She finally got the hint about 2 months ago and has left me alone besides work duties, which she still nags, but whatever. The office apparently has a tradition of doing fun pranks during October for Halloween, like wrapping a cubicle in plastic, hiding candy in odd places, and a plastic skeleton that gets moved around each day. Just funny, harmless stuff like that. I decided to prank Jill. I went and got a bunch of those fake spiderwebs and plastic spiders. I also got one of those large spiders with repositional legs to put in her chair and make it look like it's working. I got in early today to get it all set up before anyone else came in. Then I went to the break room to hang out until start time. So she finally comes in and I can hear the scream from all the way in the break room. I go over to see her reaction, except she's not there anymore and 2 of our colleagues are taking down the webs and spiders from her cubicle. They demand to know if I'm the one that put it up, then start yelling at me once I say I did. They tell me it was rude and uncalled for because Jill has arachnophobia and had to be taken to the bathroom to calm down. Okay, but how was I supposed to know she was scared of spiders? Plus, it's just plastic spiders, nothing to cry over. I told them I would apologise to Jill to get them to calm down and help them clean up the rest of it. I didn't see Jill again until lunch, which is weird because her cubicle is next to mine. I caught her in the break room and apologised for scarring her with my prank. She sort of just shrugged my apology off, which ticked me off. This is where I might have been an a-hole. I told her to grow a pair and not be so sensitive next time a little spider came her way. She just gave me this weird look and told me she has and she wouldn't recommend it. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Anyway, I tried to go back to my lunch, but my boss called me into the office and suggested I take the rest of the day off. Guys, she went to HR over this silly, stupid little prank. So now I'm sitting at home worried about my job. I know I shouldn't have told her to stop being sensitive that way, but she's definitely overreacting by taking something so little to HR. Am I the a-hole or is she? You know, it's sad. If you hadn't been such a conceited a**hole and just been friendly with her, you might have known she had arachnophobia. Generally, as a person, you sound like an a**hole. But in my opinion, for the prank, no you're not. We're to at least assume that you didn't know it would upset her like that. But you could have sincerely apologised and you could have not made it worse. In the comments, Don't Blink goes in really hard on OP, and I think they deserve it. You're the a-hole. You think that a new mother has the energy to hit on you. You don't like her at all, and yet you decided, hey, I'll pull a prank on her, it'll be fun. You pulled a prank that happened to hit exactly at her phobia, and claimed you didn't know she was afraid. I'm not buying that. Instead of being mature enough to apologise and walk away, you got snarky about her phobia and the fact that you didn't like her rejection to your apology. Seriously, she didn't take you to HR over the prank. She took you to HR because of your callous and inappropriate behaviour afterwards. As for the grow a pair comment, which was completely unprofessional, and her reply that she has, means that she quite literally has. She had a boy. She literally grew a pair. How did you not know that? Start typing up your resume. You're going to need it. And really start deeply thinking about why people react to you the way that they do. You're conceited, don't know how to read the room, dismissive, self-important, and stupid. Do some work on yourself. Am I the a-hole for refusing to switch seats on a plane and ruining a family vacation? I recently boarded a flight for work, and I'd booked my window seat months in advance because I like to sleep during flights. When I boarded, I found a woman, mid-40s, sitting in my seat with her 2 kids next to her. I politely told her that she was in my seat, and she asked if I could switch with her husband, who was a few rows back in a middle seat, so they could all sit together. I felt bad, but I didn't really want to give up my window seat for a middle seat, especially on a long flight. I told her I preferred to keep my seat and suggested she ask the flight attendant for help. She looked annoyed but moved, and the rest of the flight went on without issue. When we landed, as I was getting my bag, the woman muttered, loud enough for me to hear, "Thanks for ruining our family vacation, I hope you're happy." I didn't respond, but I've been thinking about it. My brain has been hurting since, and words cannot describe the pain. Am I the a-hole for not switching seats and possibly making their trip harder? How is that ruining their vacation? I hope the plane journey is not the entirety of their vacation. Turmeric Ping has a good response for this. Not the a-hole. I'd have told her that I was indeed happy to have ruined her vacation, and potentially her entire life, by refusing to make the already unpleasant experience of a few hours in a metal tube breathing other people's farts even worse for myself, and instead made it slightly worse for her by making her sit in her assigned seat. Well, actually I'd have said nothing just like you, but I wish. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to tell me what you think about any of these stories, leave a comment. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.